These are the 7 things that I have learned while podcasting. I'm Takis. This is a Welcome Home podcast, and I am doing a special solo episode for episode number 50. I started this thing with no real expectations and certainly no experience or knowledge for how to make a great podcast or a podcast some people might care about. This was strictly a side hobby that I started during the lockdowns that I've just kept going because there's a small community of you that seem to care, which is really, really cool. I didn't know if I would get 100 plays, 200, 1,000, and to this day, 50 episodes and well over 100,000 people have streamed or viewed this podcast. So I wanted to talk about the 7 things that I have learned in this journey, in case you're starting a podcast, in case you want to do what I'm doing here, because I am far from an expert, but I've certainly learned the ups and downs, the pros and the cons of trying to do something independent. So getting started, step 1, number 1 thing that I've learned, most important thing, is that you are going to suck for many episodes. I am 50 episodes deep, and I am still objectively a pretty bad podcaster. My bad episodes are a 4 out of 10. Sometimes I get lucky and I get a 6 or a 7 out of 10 episode. But skill-wise, it is going to take a great deal of time, far more time than you might be expecting. So before you jump in, that ultimate patience needs to be top of mind. You are not going to come through episode 1, 2, 3, 10, or 50 and feel like you are an elite interviewer or conversationalist. So by far, the most important thing, expect the first few podcasts are going to suck. In my case, I've literally written down my first 50 are going to be bad. My first 100 are going to be like moderate. If I could get to number 100, I believe I'll be skilled enough to be really proud of the episodes I produce. But as of right now, I'm very self-aware that I do a pretty mediocre job, but I certainly try my best and get to the point of good enough. So it's at least interesting to certain people. And even though my skill level is mid-range, I try to be very honest and vulnerable in these episodes, which in theory is why some of you guys seem to enjoy it. The best remedy to go from a 3 out of 10 to a 6 out of 10 episode is research. It is knowing exactly who you're talking to if you have a guest, or having a plan if it's a solo episode. Deep research is the remedy. If you are not confident or anxious or not the greatest public speaker, the best thing I think you could do is be well researched, because if you know what you're going to say, you know what you're going to ask, you know what flow and direction you want to go in, and it is right in front of you, it's very hard to not at least be mid-range on that. So it sounds extreme, but expect many episodes are not going to be phenomenal. And the best thing you could do early on is research and truly care about the guest or the viewer if it's a solo episode. So number 1, expect to suck, because I'm 50 episodes in and I still truly suck. But hopefully we'll get there by episode 100. Number 2, consistency is everything. It is so important. Being motivated episode 1 to 10, that's a piece of cake. Even in my music career, being motivated song 1 or idea number 1, that is very easy. Every human on earth can have some level of motivation early on in a venture, whether it's a business, a podcast, a career of some sort, even a relationship. It's very easy in that honeymoon phase, but are you going to be as motivated and meticulous on episode 50? Because, I read a stat I have here that if your show surpasses 9,000 total plays across all platforms, you are in the top five most successful podcasts globally. 9,000 plays puts you in the top 5. So if you're starting out and you quit, you're outside that. And if you start out and you're grinding and you're trying to get to that 9,000 plays, you're in a very high level already just by the numbers. So try to keep going. The best tactic I have for consistency is batching my episodes. So for me, I will book on a Saturday or a Sunday 4 episodes, all 9 a.m., 11 a.m., 1 p.m., 3 p.m., and I'll try to knock out, that's a month of episodes if I'm doing them weekly in a single day. So batching for me, booking guests in one block, one day off, doing my research that week, being prepared on that Saturday or that Sunday takes the weight off. If you're doing a weekly or a bi-weekly or even more episodes and you're trying to do them on the fly, trying to catch up, that is going to be nearly impossible. And for me, especially batching episodes, having a day where I'm like, you know what, I'm going to be really exhausted. I got 4 or 5 episodes booked and I have something to do after this, but it's so much more valuable when you can knock it out. And you're also in a different flow state. The first one of the day might be a little rocky, but you start getting better at your conversations and you learn a few things. And by episode 5 that day, you might be exhausted and a little out of it, but you're going to be in a better state to have a really good conversation. So number 2, consistency is everything. So many people quit early. You got to keep going. You got to keep putting these episodes out. And on another level, clips on socials, tweeting it out, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is. I mean, genuine consistency, start to finish. And for me, the best way to do that is to batch them together, to have these days where it is an intense grind, but I'm going to get my next 4, 5, 6 weeks of episodes done in a span of 6, 7 hours. Number 3, growth is slow until it is fast. This comes from my music experience. I put out 100 songs with 100 plays, and then all of a sudden, one caught on and it did 100,000, and another caught on and it did 1 million, and that kept going. And even in this podcast, we're only 50 episodes deep, but there were many where it was 100 plays, 100 downloads, 200, 300, and then one hit 7, 8, 9,000, and then another hit 50, 60, 70,000 views and plays. So for me personally, I know a lot of people are going to disagree, but my experience is things don't go slow until you're where you want to be. It usually goes almost non-existent until you have an inflection point. So remembering that everything is slow until it is fast is very helpful. There's no tactic or remedy to this. It is just be patient, keep the consistency up, and when you do have that inflection point, take notice and try to build off of the momentum of your show. This leads me to number 4, which is double down on what works. There have been so many episodes I was so excited for that I thought were going to go viral and were amazing conversations where I was on point, the guest was on point, the quality was perfect. And those have like 200 plays. And there are some episodes where I was disappointed in myself with the questions. I didn't feel present. I screwed up the research. I stuttered in many cases. I looked tired. The guest was laggy and delayed on poor Wi-Fi. And those just went viral. And you never know what to expect. But when I did notice the first episode hit 1,000, I was like, okay, people seem to like this style, this type of guest, this type of conversation. Then when one hit 8, 9, 10, I said, oh, well, this guest now is provoking something totally different and brought me up to this level. And then when we had our probably 75,000 view or download episode, I said, oh, my audience and the YouTube audience that are clicking my episodes clearly like this. So double down on what works. When you see an inflection point, maybe it's the algorithm, maybe you got lucky in some ways, take note, double down, try to see what is working on this system, what your listeners care about, and go straight for it. Don't be married to what you love. as much like the romance of, oh, I love this episode, I want to have this conversation. If people aren't interested in that conversation, sure, it's great to do, but doubling down on what works for your audience is going to be best for growth and for your motivation long term. Number 5, the fundamentals matter, but not as much as the content. You should 100% have a grasp of thumbnail design, obviously. Title matters a lot. SEO in the description helps a lot. These are things that will help your growth. Being great on TikTok and consistent on Instagram, great. Those are the fundamentals and you have to have them covered. But you can have an amazing thumbnail. You can have the best title. You can have the perfect SEO with the tags. But if the content isn't good, if you're not interesting, if your guest isn't giving you the right vibe, people are going to click off in 1 minute. And then YouTube's going to say that people are leaving your video super early. And it doesn't matter how great everything looks in the fundamentals and the marketing. If the content isn't good, the watch time will be low. And if you're on YouTube, you understand how important watch time is. The difference between an average click off at 5 minutes and 50 minutes is night and day. And it's the difference between 100 views and 100,000 views in many cases. So handle the fundamentals, take the fundamentals very, very serious, but this is all about content. Have a good thumbnail, have a good title, but when people click, they need to stick around. Fundamentals matter. Content is everything. Caring about entertainment value, giving people some insights, being honest, that is far more important than any growth hack or marketing attempt that you try. Number 6, this one is very tough, but probably one of the most important things for me. Be independent. In my music career, especially, I am not independent. I have a record label. I have a management team. I have agents booking shows. I work with songwriters. I work with co-producers. I work with mix engineers and people that master my tracks. I work with people that help shoot my videos and direct them. There is so many components in my music career, which makes things feel out of my control and challenging at times and very stressful at times. So when I launched this podcast, one of the most important things for me was, can I make this a one-man show? Can I book every guest? Can I research every guest myself? Can I edit the audio myself? Can I edit the video myself? Can I edit the social media clips? Can I design the thumbnails, the graphics? Can I learn descriptions, SEO, titles? That sounds very intense. But for me, that was the most important thing. This podcast, while I have a big team that I could have brought on to help me with this and that and this and that, for me, I wanted no expectations, no stress, and I wanted to be able to do every single thing myself. I'm not that great at Photoshop, but I make adequate thumbnails. I am certainly not a great writer in terms of descriptions and titles, but I got them up to a certain level. Video editing, a lot of tutorials, learning Premiere Pro and figuring that out. So this is a tough one for you, and it might take a lot of time and months and effort, but if you can book, research, do audio editing, video editing, graphics, if this is a one-man show, then it's on you. If it works out, it's on you. If it doesn't work out, it's on you. And you could rely on yourself instead of sending a video out to a video editor and the person does it wrong and I don't like it and now we're late on an episode, or an audio editor messing something up and I get angry and I remove the episode, or a thumbnail doesn't look how I wish it would look, so we're slowing things down. Not to mention the financial cost of having so many people involved in a podcast. So number 6, it is by far the hardest, but probably the most rewarding thing. Be a jack of all trades. Learn how to do as much as you can. Make it a independent one-man show. And when you're at the point of tens of thousands of subscribers and you're really generating some serious income, okay, this person's on graphics. This person that I trust is going to do video. We're going to bring on a team so I could elevate my interviews and just focus on the research and the guest, and other things will happen. But until you're at that point, including myself, this is going to be an independent podcast where I grind out everything that you see I did on this MacBook right in front of me. 7, this is the last thing that I could give you guys. Finally, start a podcast if you enjoy podcasting. This is so obvious, and it might come off as strange, but it is so important to do the thing because you like to do the thing. When I started DJing and making music 10 years ago, I didn't even know you can make money as an artist. Where I come from and the people I was around, it was literally just a hobby where we would have a couple drinks, try to produce songs, DJ at venues where we weren't getting paid. It was just to show our friends our new music. And obviously, as things grew, you learn that there is a business involved and there are other aspects, and it can be financially viable. But I really got started in music because I love music. I was cool having a normal job. I was cool working and hustling and trying to make it happen. As long as I love making music, I was going to do it. It wasn't about the financials or trying to get famous. And for this podcast, there is nothing more off-brand than a pop dance DJ doing a long-form podcast with like really deep and sometimes controversial guests. That is like terribly off-brand and a great risk. And for anyone who knows, starting a podcast from the bottom up, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme, but I found it very interesting. Every guest I would research, I would take away so much. And then having the conversation with the person, I would actually really enjoy it. There are never nerves. There is never an uncomfortable silence. Oh, I got to get a great episode. This person's really interesting. I'm going to enjoy the next 45 minutes to an hour with them, and I really enjoy this. I've even fallen in love with the process of audio editing, video editing, and, designing thumbnails, sharpening my skills in those departments. I have slowly fallen in love with. So most importantly, people are going to quit if they're doing this to earn easy income. People are going to quit if you just want to be a famous podcaster because you enjoy listening to podcasts. So before you get started, the only thing I'll urge you, make sure you enjoy that present moment of talking to somebody or doing a solo episode. If that's something you really enjoy, start your podcast. And if you make it to episode 50, like I did, feel free to email me, and I'd love to come join you for an episode. Thanks again for supporting this show. This was a random hobby that I didn't expect to make it this far. And I'll see you guys at episode 100 for that recap.